So while we're waiting, we do have a question from the community. Toss, if you weren't part of our session last week, and it's about the applications of IO intelligence and just what it can do and what excites you about IO intelligence. Since we didn't get your thoughts about that, but you've spoken about that in the past, love to hear what your contributions are as we wait.
Sure, happy to talk about that. Yeah, I think it's actually been really exciting to see the response from a variety of partners and customers and developers to our IO Intelligence launch. I think as we kind of gone out there in the market, sort of shown the power of what IO Intelligence can do and how we've harnessed uh, the ability to host open source models uh, on our compute DePIN and offer it for a much cheaper price than sort of other alternatives out there, while also beating industry benchmarks on latency and time to first token. The response has obviously been really great because there's a variety of Web3 and Web2 projects out there who have been developing AI, specific like applications or projects, but don't necessarily want to manage their own GPU infrastructure. So we've seen everything from AI agents to trading bots to various other like just tooling within sort of like a broader AI app that can be that can leverage IO intelligence, right? And especially sort of giving those teams the ability to swap between different open source models pretty quickly to see what makes the most sense for their use case, whether it be Llama or DeepSeek or some of the other ones that we have on there. So yeah, I think essentially, kind of at a high level, what IO intelligence has really enabled is it's really opened up the design space for a lot of different developers to come in and start building with AI, right? Like folks who have no idea what a GPU is, no idea what NVIDIA CUDA drivers are, don't know how to autoscale or manage their infrastructure, they can come in and start building with AI really quickly and get their ideas out into the world and into the hands of potential customers really fast. So I think seeing those type of developers start to adopt IO intelligence pretty quickly has been really exciting.
Great. Now that we have Bill up, Bill, if you could introduce yourself and your project for us.
Hi, thank you for inviting me. So I am the co-founder and the CEO of Wondera. Wondera is an AI research company focused on developing cutting-edge AI models in the field of music. So anything related to music language models, so music LM, stem separation, various toolings. Um, and Wondera is supported by a number of VCs here in Silicon Valley. We are actually based between New York and Silicon Valley. We have a platform where we are actually it's been over a year working with AONet. Actually, we actually trained a lot of our models on AONet GPUs. We're very excited on pushing AI for music forward. And most recently, we have been working on AI agents for music. So imagine having a ChatGPT style of agent or like Manus, where you can create any kind of music in an iterative and a conversational way, where it can also operate tools, basically do any sort of generation, editing, manipulation within a very natural and chat format. That's a little bit on the company and building myself. I've been a tech entrepreneur for the past 10 years, being in blockchain, being mobile internet, social network. Most recently, last 2 years, I've been in AI. That's a quick introduction. Thank you.
And so following up on that, what is the partnership between IO and Wondera at this time? If you could go into some details about that.
Yeah, that'd be great. So, Wondera is an AI company. We are in the business of building models and delivering agent products to consumers. And we actually discovered IO very early on. really, at the time, there was a lot of GPU shortage at the time when we were still using A100s and the H100s just started. Right? I was very lucky to be able to get to know personally a lot of the IO team from very early on through common friends introductions, and I found that the IO approach to be very interesting, especially the ability to source GPUs globally at the time where there was a lot of GPU shortage to be able to access resources. Um, so we actually formed a partnership pretty early on, and the bulk of I mean, since the past year, actually, the bulk of our training job has been run on IO. We actually have been using almost 100 GPUs on IO. We had 64 A100s and 32 H100s. Now we have transitioned everything to H100s. So we have 64 H100s still running with IO that is currently training. And it trained our previous models. If you go to our website, you can see our state-of-the-art stem separation model, single voice conversion model, and also train our latest 1 billion parameter music LM. Now we are fine-tuning a larger model. It's a 7 billion parameter model, also with Ionic GPUs. But for and today's topic, we are with the music LM and the agentic framework we have built, we decided to venture into a very exciting field, which is AI pop stars or AI virtual idol, AI powered virtual idols. And I can talk about that a little bit going forward, but also say that so not just for research, we have started now deploying inference capabilities on IONET, with the first music LM just got deployed. Also with IO Intelligence having the open source LLMs are deployed there, like DeepSeek. We are exploring further abilities to host not just our models, but work with IO Intelligence to build agents like AI pop stars on IONET. Yeah.
And now over to you, Tassif. You recently talked about exciting use cases for IO. You've talked about that on previous spaces. How does what Wondera is doing in the partnership fit in, and what excites you about this partnership?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's quite a few different things, right? So, I think first and foremost, one of the most exciting parts about our partnership with Wondera is the real innovation that they're driving with training a state-of-the-art music generation and audio generation model on IMET's distributed compute, right? So obviously there's a variety of different use cases and AI workloads that we have operate on IONET, but Wondera has really pushed the envelope with what IONET's decentralized compute is capable of, and it's really sort of been, this case study of how decentralized compute can be used to train sort of state-of-the-art audio generation models, which Bill just kind of went into a lot of detail on. So I think that's been a really exciting part about this partnership. And secondly, what Bill was kind of moving on to in his answer there was this idea of we've done a lot of sort of like the research legwork to make the model state of the art, but now we're sort of moving more into production and productizing, like what this model looks like out there in the real world. And Wondera is really innovating with sort of like how they're going to market with this, right? With the AI agent Popstar Starks that they're launching as well, which I think is a really, really unique way to go to market, and kind of really sort of highlights not only the power of the model that they've been building and sort of what the functionality of that is in terms of actually being able to generate music and content, but also kind of really building a differentiated brand around the pop star itself, right? And kind of really showcasing to the world like what a AI agent first future would look like, where it's not just like Chat GPT LLMs that we interact with, but these are actual AI agents that might have sort of like their own fan base and following and their own sort of like brand equity, all powered by their own sort of LLM that they own on the back end. So I think for us to play a part in Wondera's story and kind of help them bring this sort of vision to fruition is really, really exciting for us, and we're really excited to continue this partnership with them.
And Gaurav, going over to you, in last week's AMA, you did mention, Star X as when we were talking about product. Could you expand about, from a technical aspect, what excites you about working with them?
See, like, first of all, Phil, nice to meet you again. Every time I meet Phil, either virtually or recently in person in Hong Kong in Consensus, uh, it's really amazing how much innovation the respective team is doing. So kudos to you, first of all, for that, right? So with respect to the project, right, at IONET, we are building the largest decentralized compute network, right, to power the AI workloads. And being part of this team, one of the most exciting things about this space overall is the groundbreaking applications which emerge, and you literally see them flourishing, right? And Wondera is a perfect example of that. So, in my opinion, I'll always say that AI generated content is the future. The world is shifting towards the AI generated media. It was initially from text to images, and now it's music. And Wonder AI is basically a pioneer in this space, right? AI-driven song creation, where literally users can train their own AI voices. They can generate complete tracks. Can even rent AI singers, right? Like if you take a step back and think about it, right? This is really democratization of the music production, right? That's what it is. And this is making like this tech accessible to everyone, not just to professionals which have like these expensive studios. In real sense, this is the real democratization which we were looking for from the T side, right? In the music industry. Wonder AI have shown that why decentralization and the whole infrastructure which we have built in IO matters. It allows these creative AI applications to flourish without being bottlenecked by any scale of cloud or in terms of money, right? Wonder AI represents the next evolution of like this AI driven creativity, what they're doing, right? They literally have built their own LLM and a successful LLM. I've seen the demos in person when I met with Bill in person. So it's quite good, right? And this model and economy which they're creating, this has already been proven in the industry, right? If you go to Japan, you will see a lot of these anime characters. They have their own events, and there's a huge fan following, right? And it started with Japan, and a lot of other countries are now following up. Now, if you add these like music LLMs where you can generate these songs and you can create a whole economy around it, that will be one of the next big things in future. So, like every time I like talk to Bill and see the demos of the product, it's quite motivating. So, really looking forward to the tech evolution which is happening in the Wonder AI team.
Following up on that, Bill, to you, AI generated artists like what you're building with StarX require continuous inference. How does IONET and IO Intelligence ensure that scalability and low latency?
Well, thank you for the question. Thank you for everybody for your encouraging comments. Before I answer that question, I want to go back a little bit, supplement a few things that we are working with IONET or plan to work with IONET. So as Tausif and Gareth was mentioning, we initially started training our model with IONET, a decentralized GPU network. Now we're going to market. We're into production. Right? When we go into production, we have new challenges we're facing. Right, the new challenge we're facing is how do we serve customers where the latency for each single customer is not very high, so the customer doesn't need to wait a long time to get this for our main platform. Wait a long time to get some sample the generation back, but at the same time to be able to scale to more to more customers. So here we're really, beyond training, we're working with IONET to deploy our models on IONET GPUs and IO Intelligence to support our inference growth. So that's kind of the main platform, the next step. And when it comes to AI pop stars, like historically, AI pop star is not anything new. It is, and for us, it's building on the same technology bedrock, which is Music GPT. But we're giving the base layer Music GPT personality, more memory capability, objective, and also more personal style. It is kind of the pinnacle of the technology we're pushing forward. Besides music generation, it will have multimodal generation capabilities. So historically, I mean, I was saying that there's nothing new because historically there was Hatsune Miku, and there are a lot of AI pop stars from Korea. Major labels, even Universal, Sony, Warner, have signed virtual singers or virtual DJs, virtual pop stars in the past. But none of these were powered by AI, right? So they have various degree of success, and they had, there were mainly two types. One is a collaborative model where was really like Hatsune Miku from Japan, where the fans can use the Vocaloid software from Yamaha to create only vocal track with her voice. But it's a pretty cumbersome to use software, right? So you actually have to know quite a bit about music to be able to create that. And you also have to buy the software, right? And then you have also these professionally curated AI pop stars from the Korean, I mean, really a lot of the Korean like Hype or SM, these companies have pushed forward. But the problem is, both have their pros and cons, right? When you're a fully collaborative model, it's very difficult to ensure the quality of the music output. Some people make good music and people make bad music. And whereas you have the professional model, the AI, the virtual star is really just managed by a bunch of humans. There's a bunch of human behind it. There's no collaboration with the fans, right? It feels kind of disconnected, right? So what we're trying to do is using the latest AI, which is the new breakthrough in reasoning models and multi-agent frameworks, as well as the music generation models, right? In Web3, there had been a number of agents in the past, but these were none of these had the capability of music generation, for instance. So this is the first um, AI agent that's going. I mean, actually, not just in Web3, it's all over the world. There hasn't been even today an AI agent that can create music on its own, also co-creating with the user, like in a chat format that's has consistent personality. It actually doesn't exist both in Web3 or Web2. It's actually first kind of such product that's going to come out very soon. With community to be able to test the bot we're testing right now and figuring, just flashing out some bots, some bugs. Um, and then going one step further is to build the persona around it to let the agent herself to select the music based on fan feedbacks and user inputs to be able to evolve using reinforcement learning with verifiable rewards, like say users votes or comments or streaming numbers or likes to be really become something that hasn't seen before. It's really at the forefront of autonomous AI. We strongly believe that in the future, the next Taylor Swift may be an AI agent, and that's why we're creating something in that regard. And we feel that it is also very important that such an agent can run on a decentralized network of GPUs instead of just using um, OpenAI APIs or on our servers hosting the models. I mean, historically, this was not possible because we only had OpenAI APIs or Grok or some of the other state-of-the-art APIs. But now we have DeepSeek. There's going to be more state-of-the-art open source LLMs coming, and they can serve as the reasoning model where the multi-agent framework is about the same. And the LLMs, the music gen LLMs that we're already just deployed on IO Intelligence. So now it's actually become possible to be able to create autonomous AI agent that is a pop star, hopefully very soon to fully run on a network of GPUs with her own models, and maybe she'll have her own crypto wallet and be able to pay for her own GPU costs in smart contracts. That's something that we're very excited. It changes the nature of both from a technological perspective, what a virtual singer, virtual idol is, kind of from the past, to to something that is autonomous. She speaks for herself, generates her own music, co-creates with users. You don't need to know anything about music. You just need to give her, your intent, and she can iterate with you, ask you questions, and generate entire track end to end with precise control. Right? She can actually select which one is good. So those from a product, from an AI popstar perspective, we're very, very excited about it. But also the fact that we can run all of most of the stack on a decentralized network, the prospect of that is also very exciting because it really it means like it's turning that agent into a hard asset, almost like a Bitcoin. Instead of it's she may still be able to use other APIs, from various AI companies, but she also has her models, her memories, her all stuff running on a decentralized network. Anyway, so sorry for speaking so long, but that's to give you guys a little bit of context, and that's what we're excited about.
Yeah, there's something that you mentioned I want to ask Gurov. We've talked a lot about the difference between IONET and centralized GPU networks in terms of how they operate, but how does your team build and collaborate with other users in the space when the relationship evolves from using the network to now using IO intelligence? What has been set up and what will continually be set up to allow the collaboration to continue?
So I think there are two pieces which people should understand, like where partnership like these like really practically work, right? So he always used to say that that if there are applications which exponentially increase the user base and usage, and hence their compute requirements, uh, decentralized compute is not one of the options; it's the option. So imagine, like, let's say if your use case or user base of your model is increasing, right? Now, if you go to the centralized players, you you practically can't work in a model that today give me 500 GPUs, then tomorrow another 500, tomorrow another 500, tomorrow another 500. You can't do that because like there'll be a point in time when they'll be out of GPUs in the centralized players, and the only way to meet your demand for the future would be that you block whatever inventory you want 2 months in future from now itself, so that when you need it, they're not out of stocks. You basically would block all this inventory in advance, and you have to spend a huge amount of money even when your model hasn't reached that scale yet. You know from your graph that you will reach there in 2 months, but you have to block it. So you'll be spending millions of dollars worth of money on this inventory, even when you have not met that scale, right? Now, to meet such requirements and on-demand compute and that infinite scalability, decentralized players are the only solution. IO is like literally meant for that, right? We can give you the GPU that you have today, which you need today, and as and when your applications start to have more and more users, we have this infinite supply of GPUs which we can keep adding over a period of time, right? So that's where, first of all, we are an exact match to players like Wondera AI, and like to be honest, centralized players cannot even compete in that side, right? Or the only way is that these founders and companies have to spend a lot of money from their pockets to capture that inventory. I think that's where we're a straight winner, right? Second is that if you take a step back and think of it, right? AI generated artists like StarX, what do they require? They require continuous inference, meaning their models must process real time voice synthesis, music generation, and adaptive responses without lag, right? Meaning this demands a very scalable and low latency infrastructure, which exactly the IO compute layer excels in. Let's take a practical example. Let's say I am currently in, let's say, Singapore, and I am trying to generate a song from my voice. I'm giving my sample of the voice. And imagine this sample has to go to US in a US data center. The amount of time it will take for this huge amount of like sample of voice which I'll give to move to US and then come back, like it's pretty high. So there'll be a huge amount of delay. So the experience which user will have on the platform will not be great because just the speed of light problem, like moving the data packets from Singapore to US itself is huge. And then add to it the processing on the other side on the GPUs to render and all those things, right? Now, what is the only solution? Solution is that you should be having a low latency edge computing and distributed inference, similar to a CDN. Again, that's exactly where IONET AI compute layer excels, right? When you scale in use case, you should have a cost effective scaling, like unlike your centralized cloud players, right? Meaning you basically need to be having a future proof AI creativity strategy that when you scale the compute scale, again, we meet that particular requirement also. Now coming to the IO intelligence piece also, when me and like Bill were discussing in the Hong Kong time, like each of these LLMs people create, they do a good job. But as a builder, we want to always be very confident and sure that how good our model is performing compared to the other competitive models in the market, right? The open source LLMs of the world, right? Now, for that, if they have a team internally, which basically creates an infrastructure where these open source models are deployed, maintained, scaled, fine tuned, that takes a good amount of their bandwidth managing that infrastructure, meaning they cannot focus on their business. That's exactly where IO Intelligence comes in. We have a product, we have a team which excels in this, and we give all these popular models uh, for the inferencing and comparison against their models in a very easy way to be consumed, right? And if a new version of the model comes in which they're interested in, we do that work automatically also, right? And all these things we give it as one particular component. So anytime they have any problems, any issues, any future asks, we become a single window solution. That's what exactly builders are looking for. So in short, any AI use case like StarX, which is a very good use case, when they need a low latency experience, scalable, decentralized, and a cost effective AI compute, I think IO would be the future in the coming time. And partnership like this will keep showing the world why the IO can play a great role and enabling such startups in future.
Bill, let me hand it over to you. We've been talking about AI generated content. And so let me ask you, what are the biggest misconceptions about AI generated music and content that need to be addressed? I think of things of copyright issues, for example.
Well, I just want to make a comment on what Gaurav said first. One of the things that that's very important to our consideration is the ability to scale, right? The inference, because if we want to create a AI pop star, it means potentially initially few, but as the fan base grow, there's going to be tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of people who would want to interact with her, right? So to be able to scale the inference capability is very important, and to be able to scale from a network is something that that's very important to the project itself. As to the misconception of music, I think this is a very big debate within our industry. Obviously, you guys know there's a big company called Suno, and they're doing lawsuits with all the major labels, and there's a big debate on whether music contents are freely trainable or not. There's no final solution to this, but what we do see is that more and more labels, music labels and publishers are leaning toward working with startups of actually properly licensing their data for revenue share or to share, rights to the output. So without naming the specific ones, we are actually in negotiation with a lot of them, like the major labels. And then there are a second kind of people. There are a lot of independent labels, and many of these are less known, but they also hold tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of tracks of indie artists, where they actually hold all the rights, hold both the publishing rights and the master recording rights. And there are aggregators of these data where we're also talking to potentially license these data. I think for our industry, what has been I would say misconception or what's not well understood is that the traditional music industry is just slowly waking up to the possibility. I mean, they're waking up to two factors. The first fact is they cannot stop AI. AI is coming, music will be created by AI, music will be manipulated by AI. So not 100% today, but I think within maybe a year or two, the vast majority of music would have some sort of AI, right? Even AI for editing, for remix, for mastering, or creating ideas is going to be permeated fully into the whole production system, right? And what hasn't been fully understood by the industry is that, I mean, the industry has come around to understand this point so far, but what they haven't come around to fully understand is the potential for revenue, potential to create a new revenue, right? Some of them are still want prepayments, but some of them are starting to understand the power of revenue share, or sharing the rights, right? So think about like working with an AI pop star, or like agent of a human pop star, let's say Drake, right? So if I was able to work with a Drake agent as a fund to co-create, whereas if the song is permitted by the team, their team for me to download or publish, even if I get to own a small percentage, I'd be very, very happy, and potentially this could make a lot of revenue. But that for human as obviously a lot harder for human to agree to that. That's why it's very important for to create an example, which is StarX as the first example where she's she doesn't have a human attachment. She's a virtual AI pop star where fans can co-create with her, and imagine where she will own part of the rights, whereas the fans can own part of the rights, and this song can be streamed on Spotify, where and the royalties are paid both to StarX and the fan who co-creates the song with her. So I think the future of music is going to be much more collaborative, much more personalized. If we think about it, we watch content. We only use watch content on TV or on Netflix, or movie theaters. But later on, we have TikTok and Instagram. We watch reels. We watch short videos, and because we give all creators the tools to be able to create and distribute their own creation of content. So we're watching mini films, mini entertainment contents. But I think that for music is also coming, where more people will be able to create music with AI, but they're co-creating music with some agent. They are well known. They're not just creating some random music with pseudo. I could be creating with an AI, co-creating with an AI pop star, or co-creating with human pop star's AI agent. I think that era is also coming very, very soon, as the technology become ready this year. And I think that's going to change the whole perspective for the industry. Um, More personalized music, more co-creation, more monetization. Um, it's just a different, and I think the whole industry will very soon be able to come around once there are a few good examples, right? Such as Taylor, such as StarX become successful. Obviously, she will release her first album. Her first album will be mostly songs co-created with her fans through a selection process. She will be hosting music festivals. We already got invited by Tokyo to go later in the year at a music festival in Tokyo. But she will also have collaborations with real world artists. Think about like Rose collaborated with Bruno Mars for Apate. Who says like AI pop star can also collaborate with existing pop star to co-create a song. So anyway, I think that's to give a little bit context to. I mean, also answer the question. Yeah. Do you?
Tassif, let me hand it over to you. You've talked about AI generated content and are having these conversations on a weekly, daily basis. What do you think are either misperceptions or advances that are less well known in this space?
So I think a lot of what we've discussed, like what Bill has mentioned, has kind of been has covered a lot of it already too, right? So I think in terms of what are some of the biggest misconceptions about AI generated music and content that need to be addressed, I think first of all, it's sort of around um, this copyright issue, right? So I think Bill kind of like nailed it on the head in terms of it kind of requires this sort of like closer collaboration with um well, I think like misconception is it feels like this sort of like almost intractable problem that might kind of be sort of like this like blocker for broad spread or like widespread kind of like adoption of AI generated music and content and things like that. I think realistically, what will be needed kind of in the future is sort of like a like intellectual property or regulation sort of like framework that is put into place where it can kind of come to an alignment between sort of like existing larger like incumbent players like like Universal, Sony's, Warner's, and kind of a lot of the newer startups kind of like building in the space, right? I think there's already kind of like a lot of drama going on between some of the other startups like Suno and Udio and some of the bigger players out there, but I think longer term these issues will be resolved and will be figured out because I think the broader like opportunity set that exists here is really large, and I think like all players involved are going to see that the pie can be grown here beyond sort of like what exists today. So I think kind of as like this technology progresses, as it sort of becomes more widespread, as it kind of becomes more sort of like adopted, and this idea of AI generated music and AI pop stars and things like that kind of become more mainstream, we'll see this regulatory framework kind of evolve and become more sort of like commonplace within the industry. I think another one has really been kind of around this idea of, uh, with AI generated music and content kind of almost replace like replacing like existing artists or kind of becoming sort of like this like frontier that existing artists don't like want to engage in. Sort of like human artists have like a very sort of negative perception of AI generated music, and obviously I think are kind of threatened by it. But I think in the future this will kind of also be sort of like an evolution that takes place, right? I think if you kind of look into the history of creative tools that are out there, even before sort of like the advent of AI, whether that's in like music or like video or like image, like different forms of media. I think like every sort of technological advancement has really kind of been about how do you enable artists themselves or anyone with a creative vision or idea to bring their vision to life and sort of be able to sort of execute on it more easily. And I kind of think this perception that, like AI is bad and shouldn't be touched by creatives and, like everything should be sort of like human, will kind of get cast aside as sort of more people get acclimatized to it, right? And kind of realize that AI, just like uh, any other sort of kind of like technological piece of software is fundamentally a tool, right, that enables people to be able to execute on their vision like faster, get their ideas down on paper or out into the real world much more quickly and much more efficiently, and thus kind of eventually kind of really democratizes sort of like access for people to be able to create art and generate music or video or images or what have you, like whatever their art looks like. So I think these are some of, I think like the current like biggest misconceptions or fears around AI generated music and sort of like art and content in general, that I think people are having a lot of conversations about. And I think over the coming months to years, we'll sort of start to see more clarity kind of appear for these.
Grav, I want your opinion. You had said earlier that decentralized GPU networks are not a solution, they are the solution. And speaking of the evolution to builders, when looking at a decentralized GPU network, what are the things and qualities that they should be looking for in determining if this is the right fit for them?
I think the first thing they should look for is the transparency itself. Because if you're looking for the decentralized network and there's no transparency of what the supply is, where is it coming from, and so on and so forth, right? That's the first thing. The second thing is when we say a decentralized network and using that, what you're basically looking for is that it should be away from the ethos of the centralized inventory as much as possible. Meaning, we have seen some players in this domain of DePINs where they have the tech, they have the smart contract, and so on and so forth. Sometimes they even have their own blockchain, but the inventory is owned by them. So they don't have that infinite scalability. They don't take advantage of the community hardware, the data centers, and so on and so forth. So yes, they do have a blockchain, they do have a smart contract, right? They might have a token also, but fundamentally, the product which they have, which the startups are coming to use, which is GPUs, that is in the centralized uh, space itself. That's the second thing which I look for when I look for a product, especially deep into be used. The third thing I look for is that what is the vision of the project? For example, when any startup, when they start, money is very critical, right? Because they want to make sure each and every dollar they spend, they're getting a ROI for it, which makes sense. But I've seen it practically, like as being part of multiple startups which have gone ahead and done well. That initially we are very sensitive about money, but when you start to do well as a project, then everything is ROI. That, like, they don't care about the money. They think, okay, if this particular person is working on optimizing for having less cost, if the same person now works on problem X, will we make more business? Will we make more money? That's how successful company thinks once they've graduated from the early startups, right? So that means that the deepen you're working with, is it just a compute, or they also have a vision of graduating and growing along with you as a project, right? Like, for example, in case of IO, we started with the pure deepen, but now we're going into the AI spaces. We're creating AI agents. We are creating this IO intelligence. So we are basically creating the software layer which makes the life of the builders easy to orchestrate their jobs or deploy their job to scale and so on and so forth, right? So I look for that vision of the platform also, that will this particular project grow along with me as a company, right? And then the other thing which I always look for is that, like, the world is good till the time it's good, right? But if I start to face a problem, how responsive the project is, right? How technical a person there are in the project, that when I face difficulties, like how soon can they respond and how quality a response they give. For example, honestly, one of the centralized products I worked with for compute a couple of years back, I faced a problem. My system wasn't scaling up, and then when I reached out to them, they responded back in 2 days. And once they responded back, there were a couple of, like, no offense, but there were a couple of fresh graduates who responded back, and it literally was very apparent and clear that they just googled the problem and came back with the answer, right? And that already I've done. So I waited for 2 days, and then you give me a response which is like not even useful. So basically, my business was down for 3 days. So it's very, very important that the projects you work with, how good a technical team they have, how responsive they have, and how much of a quality response they have in the very first front. I think this is bare minimum it starts with, and then there are more, like, going forward things are which I look for.
Bill, speaking of vision and evolution, could AI pop stars leverage blockchain based fan engagement models, NFT ownership, tokenized content? Where do you see the evolution of using the relationship between a creator and their fan base evolving using Web3 mechanisms?
Yeah, thank you for the very good question. A lot of the I've been in crypto since 2018. There has been some real use cases. There has been also a lot of use cases that were not real. Um, Whereas for an AI pop star, it actually was very surprising to us that the more we thought about it, the more it made sense. We actually initially didn't plan to build it with Web3 features. We were just planning to create an AI pop star as it is. But then we came to the philosophical question, whereas what is the fundamentally the existing fan relationship between fans and the pop star? For a human pop star, a human pop star is a real person. A real person has a desire to own assets, to to buy houses, to spend, etc. But for an AI pop star, I mean, as AI is advancing so fast, they're becoming more and more intelligent and autonomous. But it doesn't matter how intelligent or autonomous they are. I mean, at least in the near term, they don't have a desire to the human desire to own stuff, to spend money beyond what they need to spend for GPUs or to grow their objective, which is having more funds, maybe spending advertising dollars, things like that. But at the same time, an AI pop star is unlike a lot of the other agents. An AI pop star actually can make real world revenue, make Web2 revenue. So think about streaming revenue, concerts, merchandise, brand deals, all the stuff that a traditional virtual singer was making, or a real world pop star is making, and a virtual pop star can make that, right? Um, and she can perform on stage in holograph. If you have seen like Hatsune Miku's stage performance, you can imagine photorealistic AI pop star to perform on stage. I mean, you have robotic bodies going from agentic to the physical world, within a few years, because things are progressing so fast. But so another question is, where do these real world revenue go? Besides the cost, right, for GPUs, etc. The profits, where does the profit go? Who controls the profit? We think it makes total sense where the funds gets to the most important question. The funds gets to gets to benefit from her success, financially benefit from her, not just for potentially like a token appreciation, but actually be able to make decisions on how to use the money. If the fund decides to burn the token, or the fund decides to throw a big party, run a big giant yacht for the fans, or for another concert, or you know and these kind of things that were not possible. AI pop stars work for themselves. The fans love them, but here is a different relationship where the AI pop star actually worked for the token holders or worked for the fans who holds her token, and the token holders also benefit from her success. And now, when you listen to her songs on Spotify, you know that every time you listen, you're actually generating revenue for her. So it gives you a much stronger incentive to spread the words, for loyalty to the artist. And secondly is artistic direction. So artistic direction, and also major decisions. As these agents become more and more autonomous, multi-agent, they actually create their own workflow pipelines. It's important for the community to be able to influence, give feedback or influence the agent through on-chain, for instance, voting or governance governance mechanisms. Um, and also ideas like holding a certain amount of token give you privileged access to interact with her on one-on-one basis, to go to the concert at the front, at the artist section, um, and things like that are also very exciting. Obviously, the co-creation of music. But I have to say, for the NFT part, the NFT part is also something very interesting to explore. It could be like collectibles, could be badges, could be, like super fun badges and things like that that give you certain privilege or value within the community. But in terms of music, right? So what we want to do with the music, obviously the easy way to think about it, we can make music into NFTs, but historically, these weren't super successful. But what we want to do for her music is really make her music to integrate into the existing system. So may it be NFTs or not NFTs, it's not, for that part is not that important. What's important is that her music is copyrighted, it's recognized. So there are companies who are working with like Audible Magic, like ACR Cloud. These are, industry standards where they have hundreds of millions of songs where you register with them, and when anyone uploads these songs to YouTube, to social media, to Spotify, and these are recognized for ownership rights, and it's distributed. So we really want to make sure that she works in the real world, where her music or her everything works in the real world and makes real world revenue, and that revenue gets turned into assets that she can hold in a crypto wallet, right? And then, working with the funds. Um, just really thinking natively about what makes sense for an AI pop star. A decentralized AI pop star is almost like hard asset, is almost like a living being, except she doesn't have consciousness, but AI is making that simulation better and better. Uh, and then to be able to, it's really a new relationship where, and with blockchain, with decentralized network GPUs, the AI popstar is really an agent of the fans, right? Where the fans are the principal. So that's kind of our thinking about how blockchain and token can be applied to AI popstars.
Speaking of relationships and futures, Tassif, what does the future of Wondera and IronNet's collaboration look like?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I, mentioned some of this earlier on in this space as well, but I think there's a lot of potential for growth here between Wondera and Ionet, right? So I think as we've talked about in detail here, our partnership so far has been really deeply focused on collaborating around the training of these AI like audio generation models. But I think that's really sort of like the first step of what we'll be working together on, right? So I think as Wondera evolves and as sort of StarX gets to market and sort of like evolves her fan base as well as like AI agent Popstar, we'll really start to see more of a deeper partnership kind of come to market between Ionet and Wondera as Wondera's user base grows, as StarX gets more popular, as she requires more inferences, as she creates more songs, as she has to interact with her fan base. We'll see a lot of that inferencing capability that's required to do all those actions kind of running through Ionet's decentralized compute, right? So I think we'll kind of see a lot of evolution happen there. Plus, I think we've talked a little bit about IO intelligence here too. So, I think as this partnership kind of grows too, we're looking at a variety of ways to integrate all of the great innovative work that Wondera has done into our IO intelligence product as well, and kind of really making um, the model that Wondera has developed really accessible for all, and to essentially kind of democratize like music generation and audio generation, to really kind of drive usage and drive distribution for Wondera's model as well, through sort of like the lens of IO intelligence as kind of like an additional distribution mechanism on top of that. So I think in terms of that's sort of what we kind of see in the near term, right? But kind of really sort of like building up Wondera as a platform on its own and kind of helping Bill and the team here establish kind of like their longer term vision and powering it through compute on Ionet is really kind of where I sort of visualize this partnership growing and evolving in the future.
And Bill, for our listeners who want to get involved with StarX, who want to start using it, what is the timeline and what can they do?
Well, thank you. That's a very good question. Again, before that, I want to just supplement what Tossif said. What we are actually very excited about, StarX is the first example, right? We want to make, and her goal is to compete with Taylor Swift. That's how why we designed her the way she's designed. But there's going to be more than one AI pop star. There's going to be AI pop star for the anime world. That's going to be one for the Mandarin world, for the for Indian world, for the Middle Eastern world. That's going to be different personality, speaking style. They will evolve differently with reinforcement learning. They will look differently, have different voice, different focus, right? So imagine if Wondera, after the success of StarX, people understand how this works, and we can become a platform where all of you guys can create the pop star that of your dream, and push that forward. And all of these pop stars can, when they graduate, initially that maybe they're centralized on centralized platform. When they gain enough funds, they can graduate, they can transfer to a decentralized network, and and then have a token and become their own independent existence. And obviously they get software updates from us, and they can upgrade. So I think that as a second step, really opens door to many of such agents that run for different communities, for different cultures, for different languages, and that is not very far. That could be something like we have planned, which is the second half of this year, or something that we are planning. We're already building a platform to support this, and hopefully these inferences, right? Hosting can be also supported by ONET. Yeah, and to your question, sorry, can you repeat the question again? I kind of lost my
Sure.
thoughts. Yeah,
Where
for a
can
second.
someone get updates, find
Yeah,
out how they
yeah,
can
yeah.
participate?
Yeah. So the most direct way right now is just to follow the Twitter of StarX, because like there are two ways to build this. One way is we create all the contents, right? It's just like a lot of people are building, you know, virtual stars, virtual pop stars. So some people claim they're building AI pop stars, but so far, none of these we've heard about, we've seen can create music on their own or co-create music. But they just I've heard about a project from actually a subsidiary of Winner that looks like Astro Boy, but it doesn't create music. Um, so that is coming very soon. So right now, just follow the Twitter and the get the announcements and things like that. For the funds, she probably be, I think before the end of the month, we will be we'll be opening her Telegram bot and WhatsApp bot for the funds, for the community to be able to start interacting with her. She will only talk about music. She will only co-create music with you, but you can talk to her about creating music. So that is going to be the next step, is we actually releasing the bot within a chat format where anyone can talk to them and can co-create music with her, and that will and those music co-created will feature on a website. She has her own website, and we can vote on those contents to be able to either toward the end of the month or beginning of April, we can vote on which one is best. So it's going to be some sort of selection process. We're also planning to open up her thought process. Whereas once you log in or you have a sort of authenticated mechanism, you can actually see her real-time thought process. What she's thinking, what she's doing. Is she's searching the internet for ideas? Is she checking culture trends? Is she responding? So you actually, as you are seeing the reasoning model, doing the thinking, you're actually seeing what she's doing on a 24/7 basis. Um, and so that's kind of another way to basically to check what she's doing in her studio. And lastly is really to give her comments and feedbacks. So that's where we are also working on setting up, which is her Discord account. So she has basically two main workflows. One workflow is she co-creates with user, and we can vote whose co-creation is the best. And the other one is she creates her own music, but we gave her feedback on whether if we like these music ideas, we like these samples, and she takes the feedback and to iterate until she feels it's good enough and to post them on public channels. So it's really another channel where we help her give her feedback on her own music. But these are the kind of the various ways. So for now, I think just follow patiently. We're working actively on refining the agent capabilities and also refining the LLMs. One of our LLM just got deployed on LNet. We have a little bit of firewall issue. We're working through that. It should be in the next couple of days, and it gets connected to her system. Yeah, because also she's the first of such build, right? So there's some works that we're doing to get it work sufficiently good. But even that is going to be a beta version, right? It's going to take a bit of time when this to perfection her speech style, her her ability to understand the intention of the user perfectly. That's it's going to be a process. But within the next 2-3 weeks, we should community should be able to start interacting with her on a real-time basis.
Great. So be sure to follow and stay tuned. That's all the time we have for this week. Next week, we'll have another partner on and we'll be answering community questions. Bill, thank you so much for joining. IO team, always great to have you on. Thank you to all of our listeners, and we'll see you all next week.